Welcome to the Fantasy Football Breakdown for Week 2. In this humble reporter's highly qualified and respected opinion, we may never see scoring on a level commensurate with what we witnessed here in Week 2 of the 2022 fantasy football season. Not only did we see 12 players break the 30-point threshold in the Ops Soup League, 2 of those went for over 50, and 1 broke the all-time scoring record in the Ops Soup League, a league that saw a few other records fall as well. More on that later. On to the scores. First up today, let's check in with the Outcast League. Our first game, the fantasy football team versus Rebel Scum. Rookie owner Eric of Rebel Scum had to be kicking himself this week as Lamar Jackson, a player he traded in the offseason, went off for 51.8 points. Points that Rebel Scum sorely missed as they were beat up by the fantasy football team led by QB Derek Carr's 25.5-point effort. The Scum squad just could not get anything going offensively. Conversely, the fantasy football team had an all-star effort from a rejuvenated Carson Wentz, who posted his second straight 35-point-plus effort. Add in Tyreek Hill and his 36.5 points, and you get the recipe for a thorough beatdown. Seemingly the only bright spot for Rebel Scum is the fact that they did manage to put up 23.25 points more this week than last. Conversely, the fantasy football team regressed in Week 2, scoring 12.5 points fewer than Week 1. This was not enough for Rebel Scum to come away with the win, however, as the fantasy football team prevails 144.85 to 107.4. Next up for Rebel Scum is a meeting with Stars and Stripes, while the fantasy football team will play host to Randall Access Memories. Our second matchup in the Outcast League was Team Sesh versus Stars and Stripes. Stars and Stripes hope to continue their winning ways as they travel to THC Field to take on Team Sesh. With only 58.7 points on the board at the end of Sunday games and only 2 players to go, it was going to be a long walk to get to the win. QB Jalen Hurts managed an impressive 38.35 points to aid the effort. However, wide receiver Adam Thielen was less fortunate, managing only 7.2 points. Team Sesh, however, managed elite performances from both Nick Chubb at 30.8 and Stephon Diggs with 38.8. An average performance from Pat Mahomes with 23.75 was still enough to seal this one as Team Sesh wins it 139.85 to 104.25. Week 3 will see Stars and Stripes taking on Rebel Scum, while Team Sesh will travel to Show Me Your Kittles. Our third matchup, Mongo Mentality versus Randall Access Memories. We mentioned earlier that Rebel Scum owner Eric may be lamenting his trade of Lamar Jackson this offseason. The other team involved in that deal, Mongo Mentality, must be more than happy with the way their investment is paying off. With 51.8 points this week, Lamar was eclipsed by only one other player. Add in a 30.5-point performance from Aaron Jones, and the recipe for a Mongo Mentality win was all but complete. On the Randall Access Memories side, Josh Allen was the bright spot, absolutely crushing it with 40.85 points. However, less than stellar performances from his supporting players were the nail in the coffin for this RAM team, as Mongo Mentality wins it 138.5 to 115.65. Mongo Mentality will play the second game of a 2-game homestand as they host Timinators. Randall Access Memories will play on the road at the fantasy football team. Our fourth matchup, Saints for Life versus Show Me Your Kittles. Having the third highest team score and yet still losing had to sting for the Kittles in Week 1. Hoping for redemption this week, they played host to defending champs Saint for Life. A 25-point performance from their Tampa defensive unit was the highlight of their weekend, however, as quarterback Russell Wilson managed only 15.25 points. And Week 1 monster, Saquon, regressed a bit to 10.3 points. Saints for Life needed a victory here to maintain relevancy as the defending champion and to stave off calls for new management from pundits. Starting quarterback Kirk Cousins was no help to Amy's efforts as he managed an unimpressive 13.05 points. However, a heroic effort from her wide receiver core of Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Cooper Kupp with a total of 61.2 points between them was enough to snatch this victory away from the Kittles 122.85 to 102.25. Saints for Life will meet up with the Ball Hawks in Week 3 as Show Me Your Kittles hosts Team Sesh. Next up, we have the results of the weekly $5 contest in the Outcast League. Our Week 2 contest in the Outcast League was highest scoring bench player. The Ball Hawks manager Rob walked away easily in this one, keeping this week's highest overall score, Tua Tagovailoa, on his bench. This is 2 weeks in a row where Tua has outscored the Ball Hawks starter, Ron Rodgers. We here at the Fantasy Football News will be keeping a close eye on that starting slot for Week 3. Our final matchup here in the Outcast League was the Ball Hawks versus Timinators. This was the feature match, and this match had both the most improved team from last week as well as the most diminished. A 32.8-point effort on Thursday from Justin Herbert was probably enough to keep Timinators hopeful going into Sunday's matchups. Uninspired performances from the remainder of Tim's roster, however, quickly tempered those hopes. The Ballhawks, on the other hand, must have been pleased to see Aaron Rodgers post an average score after his horrible Week 1 showing. That is, until they watched the aforementioned Tua Tagovailoa go off for 55.55 points. Assisted by a spirited 34.6-point performance from Jalen Waddle, Rob was able to cruise to victory in this one, 124.7 to 114.9. Timinators will match up with Mongo Mentality in Week 3, while the Ballhawks host the defending champion Saints for Life. That's going to do it for this week's Outcast League matches. Stay tuned for results in the Op Soup League, as well as our Crappy Decisions segment.
You know, there are lots of activities going on about this season of the year. The one you'll find uppermost in the minds of most high school students, especially toward the end of any week, is football. And the night before the big game, there's generally a rally. Now, you don't want to be late, but before you go, remember, you're planning to bring the gang in afterwards. Now you've got the idea. Put plenty of Coke in that refrigerator. Ice-cold Coca-Cola will be a mighty welcome sight when you return. You know, it's a good idea to keep plenty of Coke on ice all the time. Coca-Cola has a distinctive flavor, all its own, a flavor that has never been equaled. Coca-Cola is popular with everyone, which makes it ideal when you're expecting guests. Now, that's true whether it's a casual gathering like this one or a planned party. The bright, bracing flavor of Coke is always welcome. It's a flavor that has made Coca-Cola the most asked-for soft drink in the world. Have a Coke.
A disastrous Week 1 start for Black Ops MC here in Week 1 of the Op Soup League was followed up in Week 2 with yet more bad news as Marcus' squad lost starting quarterback Trey Lance to a season-ending injury. Carson Wentz continued to improve for Black Ops, posting a 34.28-point performance. However, the rest of their roster just seems to be defeated, with only one player edging past the 10-point mark. As bad as things were looking, Black Ops pulled the trigger on a blockbuster trade deal, sending wide receiver Jerry Jeudy to Rebel Scum in exchange for Rebel Scum's bench quarterback Justin Fields. This move seemingly improves both teams and may even have playoff implications. For their part, Team Scott managed to improve last week's score by 46.42 points, thanks in large part to a 39-point game from superstar wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Average performances from the rest of her roster were enough to put away Black Ops MC 137 to 82.58. Black Ops MC will match up against Garbage Time next week. Team Scott faces off against Randy and the generic football team. Our second match in the Op Soup League was Stars and Stripes versus Garbage Time. After being pummeled by Rebel Scum, Garbage Time owner Casey was quick to start talking smack against their Week 2 opponent, Stars and Stripes. Garbage Time was feeling very confident heading into Monday night's games as they held a 17.6-point lead and had 3 players remaining, one of them being Derrick Henry. Team Stars and Stripes, on the other hand, had only 2 players remaining, Jalen Hurts and Stephon Diggs. Stephon and Jalen, however, looked absolutely electrifying as they combined for 76.82 points, while Derrick Henry seems unable to find the running lanes he has had in the past, posting a miserable 8.5 points on just 25 yards and 1 touchdown. Garbage Time blows this one in magnificent fashion as Stars and Stripes remains undefeated. Week 3 will have Garbage Time hoping that Black Ops MC remains stagnant while Stars and Stripes attempts to run the Casey Gauntlet and takes on the beleaguered Team 1051. Our third matchup, it was Rebel Scum versus Team 1051. Team 1051 was all about hope as they prayed for a Monday night miracle to save them from the crushing blows of an unstoppable Rebel Scum squad. Jared Goff managed a 34.04-point performance, but this proved the lone bright spot as Justin Jefferson was held to 7.8 and Leonard Fournette to just 8.4 points. Rebel Scum, however, looked dominant again this week as they completed the Casey Gauntlet by defeating Garbage Time last week and then 1051 this week. Led by Lamar Jackson with 52.62 points, Rebel Scum easily handled business with impressive performances from Nick Chubb with 30 points and Justin Herbert with 29.96 points, bolstering their score. Final in this one was Rebel Scum 161.68, Team 1051 132.48. One undefeated team is guaranteed a loss next week as Rebel Scum challenges Don't Remember Didn't Happen, while Team 1051 will grapple with Stars and Stripes. Our fourth matchup, Generic Football Team versus 12th Man Mafia. The 12th Man Mafia came into Monday night down by 48.88 points, but after seeing Lamar and Tua go off for over 50 points each, they had to have a glimmer of hope as Josh Allen was their remaining starter. Josh managed a 38.68 point Monday night performance, but came up just short. A look at the waiver wire for another flex QB may be in the Mafia's future, as Geno Smith was humdrum in his Week 2 showing. Over on the GFT side, no one performance stood out as Randy's roster managed to do just enough to hold off the Mafia. At the end of this one, the GFT wins it 123.06 to 112.86. Next week, 12th Man Mafia hopes to rebound against the Turf Burns, and the Generic Football Team will travel to Scott Field as they take on Team Scott Scott. Next up, we have our weekly contest results for the Ops Soup League. Week 2 was Strong Shoulders Week in the Ops Soup League as we awarded our weekly $5 prize to the owner who rostered the highest scoring starter. Rebel Scone owner Eric was certain he was a lock this week after Sunday morning's game saw Lamar Jackson put up 52.62 points. Unfortunately for the Scum Squad, Tua Tagovailoa managed to edge that out by just 1.24 points to take the prize in Week 2. Week 3 is Dan Marino week here in the Ops Soup League as we will award the $5 prize to the team whose QB throws for the most yardage. Tiebreaker will be most passing touchdowns. What is that smell?
Who made a crappy decision? 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 Who what? Crappy decision? Who they thinking? Made a crappy decision? Who what? Made a crappy decision? Who they thinking? Made a crappy decision? Who made a crappy decision? Who made a crappy decision?
Hey everybody, it's me, Terry the Turd, back this season to let you know who made a crappy decision. First up is the 12th Man Mafia in the Ops Soup League. Had she started Devin Duvernay in place of either Darnell Mooney or Elijah Moore, Veronica would have won her matchup. Veronica made a crappy decision. Veronica made a crappy decision. Yeah, what was she thinking? Had Spencer started Jahan Dotson and Drake London over Terry McLaurin and Elijah Moore, he would have won his matchup by 1/10 of a point. Spencer made a crappy decision. Spencer made a crappy decision. Yeah, what was he thinking? Tim made the decision to start Aaron Rodgers-less Devontae Adams over superstar receiver Curtis Samuel, costing himself 11.2 points and the win. Tim made a crappy decision. Tim made a crappy decision. Yeah, what was he thinking? Had Rebel Scum owner Eric kept the team he inherited intact and not blown his roster up, he may have walked away with a win this week. Eric made a crappy decision. Eric made a crappy decision. Yeah, what was he thinking? That's all for this week. I will see you guys back again in Week 6. Have a good one. What were they thinking?
Who made a crappy decision? Who made a crappy decision? Who made a crappy decision?
Oh, thank you for that report, Terry. Jump. Whew. Wow. Coming off a Week 1 win, Washington Fantasy was unsatisfied with its current contract and fan base. Opting to shun a formula that won them second place last year, Washington Fantasy has chosen to relocate and rebrand as Don't Remember Didn't Happen. League officials are still looking into the legality of this name choice, and a decision could come down from the commissioner's office at any moment. As always, we here at FFN will keep you posted. Those of you that were with us last season can remember the Sandlot curse, wherein the Sandlot Turf Burns would be the second or third highest scoring team in any given week and yet still managed to lose as they routinely faced off against the highest scoring team in that same week. This happened on multiple occasions, and we may be seeing some small signs of its 2022 return. With 134.04 points, the Turf Burns were the fifth highest scoring team, and yet were easily managed by the absolutely dominant Don't Remember Didn't Happen. We mentioned earlier that several records were broken this week, and DRDH is responsible for a few of them. Corey now owns the record for highest total team score, highest scoring player, as well as highest scoring quarterback. This matchup also set a new record for highest combined match score, as well as helped the league set a new record for total points scored by all teams across the league. As I mentioned earlier, 12 players managed to break the 30-point barrier this week, and 3 of them were on the DRDH team. With the new roster formats in play, we may see some of these records fall yet again this season. Only time will tell. At the end of regulation in this one, DRADH wins it 192.5 to 134.04. Week 3 will have 2 of the remaining 3 undefeated teams match up when DRDH takes on Rebel Scum, while the Turf Burns will host the 12th Man Mafia. That will do it for the Week 2 fantasy football news. Thank you again to everybody for joining me as I recapped this week's matches. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions, feel free to let me know, and we here at Fantasy Football will see what we can do. Have a great Week 3, everybody but Corey, and remember, here at Fantasy Football News, we're better than you.